Do you know, I sat here the other day and I thought, I don't know what's happening to me with my photography. You know when they say that as you get older you tend to go more childlike? I don't know if it's true or not, but I tend to think there could be some truth in that. I started photography when I was around 10 years old. My mum and dad bought me a camera for Christmas because they knew I had an interest in photography, always asking questions about it, looking in books about it. So they ended up buying and bought me a camera, and it was this camera. I've still got it. It's the Kodak Box Brownie Bakelite camera. Took 127 size film, one aperture, one shutter speed, no focusing. And you know, I took some really nice pictures with that camera, and on the other hand, it took some really bad pictures. But that's because obviously I didn't understand how exposure and things worked at that age. So the bad pictures was when I took the picture with it in low light conditions. They were just basically underexposed. But I was fascinated how a box like this, with nothing in it, could actually produce an image. So that was me, you know, I was bitten then, and have been for the rest of my life in photography. And over the years I've progressed, like many people. I ended up buying a Russian Zenit 35mm SLR camera, and then progressed onto the East German Praktikas because they're a lot cheaper than Canon and Nikon, etc. And it's a progression, we all go through it. And I ended up buying, I used to drool over this camera, which was the Pentax LX, the professional Pentax model. And eventually I bought one of these because obviously they've come down in price. They were astronomical price when they actually new. But I bought this a few years ago from a seller that I know on eBay, and it's a lovely camera. I like using this camera. And then I progressed on, went to medium format, Mamiya's, ended up with the Rolleiflex. And then things get a little bit more technical, and I ended up buying a Canon EOS 5, autofocus, it's all the program modes, auto bracketing, it's got everything. And then another very technical, highly tech camera, great, again a great camera, the Fuji GA645ZI. This is an auto everything. It does even more than the Canon. It does actually everything. Even imprints data on your film to tell you what settings you've used and what date you took the picture, etc. Then I've gone further than that. I've bought large format cameras, etc. But I seem to be going a little bit backwards these days because something happened to me regarding photography. It was getting a little bit stale. Obviously, I went on the digital path. I started digital when they first came out. I think it was the early 2000s, 2003, 4. I bought a digital compact, really enjoyed that. Then I've moved on. I've ended up with some of the high-end cameras from Canon, the US 1D Mark III, the 1DS Mark II. I've had all those. No longer own those cameras because I've no need for them. But so I've gone through the digital process, then gradually came back to film. But I've all these lovely cameras, but as I say, something changed about 6 years ago. I bought this camera, which is a 2000 pinhole camera. And when I shot the first roll using this camera and then developed the negatives and scanned them, I couldn't believe how that affected me as a photographer. It changed my view completely on photography. If you can pull yourself away from the idea that images have to be technically perfect, they have to produce a sharpness and a clarity that you can see every little detail, every little hair, speck of dust within the scene. If you can step away from that, the pinhole camera and what they call the toy cameras like the Holga or the Diana, there's quite a few of them. If you can accept those limitations of those cameras and pull away from this technically perfect world that we live in, then all of a sudden my photography became a lot more enjoyable. Now, as I say, I think when I asked the question, what's happened to me with my photography, I've gone through all these cameras, electronic cameras on the film side that do everything, and then onto the superb way that the digital camera works, and all the technical things involved with those cameras. I've gone all through that, and I've ended coming back to the pinhole camera and the Holga, and I asked myself, what's happened to my photography? And I think what it is that sometimes when you go out taking pictures, it can become, for want of a better word, a little bit tiresome, in that every picture has the same look to it. It might be a different picture, but it has a similar sort of look. Obviously, it's different if you go to start shooting stuff like infrared. I'm just talking about normal black and white photography. And it's to do with yourself personally, how you feel about photography and what you want to produce from it. And for me, and I'm only talking for myself, it's just a personal preference, but I feel that the cameras like the pinhole camera and cameras like the Holga give me what I want, a more artistic feel and look to my pictures. And it's not me who's created that, it's the camera that does the work, and that's what fascinates me with these cameras. So as I say, I've gone full circle right from that all the way through Rolleiflexes, you name it, Pentax LXs, Canon 1DS Mark IIIs, 1DS Mark IIs, and back to the Holga. So I've actually gone full circle. When I go on holiday these days, rather than taking a bag full of cameras and lenses, and it's probably because I'm getting a bit older, I tend to try and keep the weight as low as possible. And the pinhole camera and the Holga fit that bill perfectly for me. So over the last few holidays that I've taken in the UK, that's the only cameras that I've actually used. And last year I went on 2 holidays. We went on one in Wales, and I just took the Holga. And there is a video, I'll put a link in the description to it, that I did of that holiday, and it shows all the pictures that I took with the Holga. And it just freed me up. I could just walk about with a light package and just concentrate solely on the picture, looking at the light, looking at the contrast, and not thinking about any other things, having to focus, etc. These cameras just do all this for you, you know. So in a roundabout way, looking at it, they are an auto everything, because you don't have to do anything. And we also went to the East Yorkshire, on the North Yorkshire moors, and on the East Coast, and I just took the Holga. So I'm going to show you some of the pictures that I took with the Holga on the East Coast and on the moors, and just to let you know that these pictures have not been heavily manipulated. They're basically as the camera saw it. There's vignetting around the edges. I haven't created any of that. The actual Holga has done that for me, and for me, that's why I love that, because it takes it away from normal photography to more of a type of artwork, art form, whatever you want to call it. So we'll go onto the computer now, and I'll talk you through some of the pictures that I took with the Holga and why I took them, and you will see that the Holga, without any electronics, without any glass lens, without any type of high-tech means of manipulating the image within the camera, you'll be able to see that the Holga does produce some really nice images. At least I think they do. Now this first picture, it was taken at a place called Bridestone, or Bridestones, that's in the Dolby Forest. I took this picture because if you look at the rock itself, you can see all sorts of shapes in the rock faces, etc. But I do like the way the Holga, again with that slight soft focus to the edges and the slight vignetting, it just draws you into the rock shape itself. The next one, I took this again in the Dolby Forest. It's just a tree on its own. I think it's a silver birch, and yet again the Holga has made the picture because we've got this blur at the edges, we've got the vignetting, and the actual tree itself contrasts nice with the darker foliage that's around it, that's surrounding it. This one is taken at Flamborough Head lighthouse. I took this picture for two reasons. I like the way that the road in the foreground it leads you up to the lighthouse, and I also like the light, the whites of the actual lighthouse itself contrasted with the darker sky. I think I put an orange filter on the Holga for this picture, just to get that blue sky to go darker. North Landing, I think this is. It's a wreck of a boat that's just stuck on land. It's not seaworthy at all if you had to look inside all the holes. But I took this picture again because the way the Holga has rendered it has made the picture. If I'd just taken it as a straight shot, I don't think it would have had the same impact. Again, we've got this vignetting at the edges and we've got this blurring, and I just like the way the boat seems to stand out from everything around it because of this softer focus that the Holga produces. This is another one of the lighthouse at Flamborough Head. Now I wanted to take a picture that was different from what other people have taken of a lighthouse. Possibly my first picture of a lighthouse was one that's been taken quite a lot, so I wanted a picture that was a little bit different, and rather than getting the whole lighthouse in close up, I used some long grasses, placed them in the foreground, and because the Holga uses such a small aperture on medium format, I've got this nice depth of field, and I think it makes an interesting picture. The chalk caves are where you go down from Flamborough Head Lighthouse, and you go down onto the actual beach itself, and within the cliffs, the chalk cliffs, there's caves that are scattered all over that area, and I walked into one of those and I could see that I was going to get this contrast between the nearer arched area of the cave and looking out towards the opening that's towards the sea. But I got into a little bit of trouble with this one because I had to wait quite a while to have somebody walk into the picture. If you look carefully, you can see there's a small person stood in the outer arch, and as I say, I got into trouble with my wife because she got fed up of waiting for this to happen. But I do think it was worth it because it does add scale to this picture. And again, it's the Holga really that's made the picture, the way it's captured the light, the way, again, I keep going about this, but this vignetting coming in from the edges just focuses you into the actual picture itself, to the centre, and leads you out to the outer arch where that person stood. This is just a path that I photographed on the Dolby Forest. Sometimes the Holga produces blurry images than it does in another image. It just varies. I think it's where the light is hitting the plastic lens, but there was quite a lot of blur on this, and for me, I just felt the way that it's caught this blur, it just leads your eye down the path to the end of the pathway, and again, the Holga's created this. I haven't done. This one's of Byland Abbey. So could be notes. Yes, Byland Abbey. I like this because somehow it looked like you was looking through a keyhole at the actual ruin of the abbey itself, and again, the depth of field that we get with the Holga allow me to get the near and the far into focus. Again, this is Byland Abbey. What's this one? Oh yeah, Byland Abbey in the open area of the abbey itself. Now I think if I'd have took this picture with, say, my Rolleiflex or anything, any camera like that, that this picture would not have had the same feel to it. It's the actual blurred vignette that the Holga's created that, for me, makes this a picture that I would actually print. So the Holga strikes again, so to speak. What's this one? This is on the actual moors, going towards the steep hill of Chimney Banks. I forget the village at the bottom of the very steep hill at Chimney Banks, but this is on top of the moor, and again the actual depth of field from the Holga has enabled me to get the flowers on the actual heather to be in focus. They were pink, so they've come out like a light grey, but it's allowed me to get the actual heather in focus and the actual monument itself. And I think that was erected, I could be wrong on this, to celebrate the Queen's Jubilee. This is another one of Byland Abbey, and again the Holga has given me just enough exposure to reveal detail in the doorway, and not the film actually as well as the exposure has allowed the exterior of the abbey in its grounds not to actually blow out, so it just goes back to white. So the actual exposure of the Holga, which is not auto exposures, has worked very well on that. Just turn my notes over. This next picture is taken on the pier at Whitby, and I like this because there are actually some people walking along the pier, and it gave a little bit of scale to the picture. But the Holga has created a lovely mood to this picture. Again, I haven't manipulated the image, I've just done a contrast increase, but because it was coming darker, the picture's gone slightly dark and it adds a nice mood to it. This is another picture of Whitby overlooking the harbour towards where the actual abbey is, although you can't see it in this picture. But for some strange reason, the Holga's created a diorama site sort of look, making the houses on the cliffside, etc., look like toys, really. It's weird how it's done this, but again, it's something that I haven't done. The Holga's created that, and I found it quite interesting to see this look, and you won't see many pictures like that with this diorama look to it. Here's another one on the pier of Whitby. Getting low down, I was able to force the attention onto the wooden planks that are on the pier, and again the slight vignetting and the soft focus that comes into the centre of the picture forces the eye down the actual pier itself. And the last one is again from Flamborough Head and overlooking the chalk cliffs. I just love this because of the way the light was falling onto the cliffs and onto the water. And to me, this one picture proves how versatile the Holga can be, and it can be a very good landscape camera. So that's the pictures that I took with the Holga on our trip to East Yorkshire and the coast. If you've any questions about how I use the Holga, just leave a message in the description below. Now, this last picture I'm going to show you, it's not a picture that we took on our visit, as I say, to East Yorkshire. It's a picture I took a few weeks back while walking in a place called the Washburn Valley, Washburndale, and there's a very old pack horse bridge that goes over the river Washburn, and this for me shows everything about the Holga and how it can produce these timeless looking images. I'll show you the scanned image of this, and you can compare it with the actual edited version, and you can see that I've not done a really lot to alter this picture other than increase the contrast, add some tone to the picture. But the actual picture itself for me, when I looked at it, I thought this just looks timeless, this picture. It's as though it's been taken with a wet plate camera, one of the older type cameras, you know, with the uncoated lens, etc. And again, as you can see with the actual pictures, they scanned the picture and the finished picture, that I haven't done a lot with it. It was the actual Holga that created the picture for me. He did all the hard work. So this one picture for me sums up the Holga.